What's going on, my people? How are you all doing today? This is the history of ancient Egypt, brought to you by Professor Bob Breyer of Long Island University. So, it has been a while since I've spoken on anything regarding ancient Egypt. I think since I've been back to this discussion, I think we're about two or three uh, chapters into it. Let's see. We are on chapter 25. Yep, we are on chapter 25 of this book. Now, if you'd like to buy your own copy of it, I don't know why my camera is tweaking. If you'd like to buy your own copy of it, you can do so on Amazon. It's called The Great Courses. Great Courses. I'm not getting any rebates, any kickbacks from this. I'm just throwing out information to help two different people understand each other, whites and blacks. Negroes need to understand themselves, and white people need to understand why we feel the way we do. I'm sorry, y'all. My camera is doing something weird right now. It's out of focus, and I don't know why. Hold on. Sorry about that. Was having a little technical difficulties. Ah, man. It has been a hot one this year. And I don't go very far without my portable fan. No. Mm-mm. I don't mind the heat so much as that icky heat that just sticky heat just don't feel right.
And he uses them as the fill inside his ninth pylon. He packs the pylon inside, so he doesn't have to quarry stone. It's a cheap source of stone. It's only a couple hundred yards away, and he builds his pylon out of Akhenaten's temples. Now, there's a kind of curious irony to all this. By taking down the temple and putting him inside his pylon, he preserved Akhenaten's temple. He preserved it. And in the 1920s, when there was restoration work on Horemheb's pylon and they had to take down his pylon, they discovered all these blocks. And that's when they tried to reconstruct on paper Akhenaten's temples by using a computer. As I was telling you, you photograph each block.
So, let me get this straight. This guy, he decides to take down, he decides to take down the temple, block by block, and use the individual blocks to build his pylon. Okay, I get that. But if you want this structure to be preserved for all humanity, even after you're gone, don't you think you should have at least kind of distorted the images, names that was on these blocks? So you tried to get rid of somebody. He tried to get rid of all traces of the existence of Tutankhamun and his father and I. And as a side effect of what he attempted to do, he ended up preserving part of the the story of Akhenaten, the heretic king, and his son Tutankhamun. As smart as these people were, he missed that. He missed that. I'm assuming these blocks were fairly big. How did you not see that? If I put this block here, people gonna know that I was the ruler. But they also gonna know about that damn kid and his heretic father. Decisions. Oh well, nobody be paying attention to it. Well, what? That makes no sense. It makes no sense at all.
And you try to say, well, we've got the head of a pharaoh. Where is a block that has the shoulders of pharaoh? Maybe it matches. And that's how we reconstructed what Akhenaten's temple looked like. But it's because Horemheb tore it down. Right? Now, he does other things. He usurps all of Tutankhamun's monuments. Now, think about this. He was the king's deputy under Tutankhamun. That was his, really, heyday almost. Until he became pharaoh, of course. But it doesn't matter. Every monument that Tutankhamun had been advised to erect by probably, Horemheb takes Tutankhamun's name, carves it out, and puts his own. That's why it's so hard to find any information about Tutankhamun. Remember I said he's the mystery king? He's the most famous king in history, but we don't know anything about him? Because they were erasing all traces of him. He was associated with this heresy time, the Amarna heresy. His father was the heretic pharaoh. So Horemheb comes in and erases all traces of Tutankhamun. For example, Tutankhamun erected a stela, like all kings do, the round top stone, at Karnak Temple. It's called the Restoration Stela because of what it says. Now, obviously, he's been advised by the old advisor, what to say. And what it says is, when I became king, the temples were in disarray. There were weeds growing in them. All the statues of the gods had been melted down. The military was not respected. If it rode off, nobody attended. So he's really saying, Egypt had gone downhill under my father's reign, Akhenaten. So Tutankhamun has this stela erected. It's called the Restoration Stela because at the end he says, I will restore it all. I have had new statues of the gods made. Your temples are open again. Right? So I was wisely advising him, this is what the people want to hear. He erects this stela, but you do wonder, what does this kid think? He'd grown up with his father at Amarna, and now somebody's saying, this is what we're going to say. Your father really did a bad job. You wonder what little Tutankhamun thought. But anyway, the stela is erected. Horemheb, as soon as he becomes king, you won't find Tutankhamun's name on that stela. If you look very carefully, look at the stela. The stela is in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. You go there, you can see it. It's off in a corner. Nobody ever looks at it. Nobody knows what it is. People walk by it. But if you look very carefully where the king's name is, the cartouche, it'll say Horemheb. But if you look very carefully, you'll see that it's carved deeper than all the other hieroglyphs. Horemheb came, carved out Tutankhamun's name, and then carved his name. Right? So Horemheb is erasing all traces of Tutankhamun. Right? All traces. Also, there's one other monument that's very important for Tutankhamun, but you're not going to find Tutankhamun's name there. It's called the Luxor Colonnade. Right? It's the Luxor Colonnade. When Tutankhamun's grandfather died, he left a monument unfinished. Right? He had started a hall with long columns. That's why it's called a colonnade. He had built it at Luxor Temple, but it's undecorated. And then Amenhotep III dies. When Akhenaten moves to Amarna, it's left undecorated. It's an unfinished monument. Unfinished. When Tutankhamun moves back from Amarna to Thebes, advises him, finish this monument. Why? You're going to be associating yourself with Grandpa, the establishment guy that everybody loved. So Tutankhamun's major monument during his 10 years of reign is restoring, completing the Luxor colonnade. Now, how do you do it? How do you decorate it? What do you put on it? What he put on it were scenes of Opet. It's the most sacred festival in Egypt. He's a traditionalist. He's saying, look, I'm not really my dad's kid. I'm Grandpa's grandson. He decorates it with Opet. Now, Opet was a wonderful festival. The major three gods of Thebes during this time were Amun, the hidden one, Mut, his wife, and Khonsu, their ram-headed son. The Trinity, always triads for all the gods. These gods had statues at Karnak Temple. Now, Karnak Temple is only about a mile and a half away from Luxor Temple. And once a year, during the festival of Opet, the statues of Amun...
And he says, always a trinity with the gods. I don't know if I'm on board with the the whole ram head thing, but it sounds to me like somebody was doing some appropriating, some thievery was afoot, maybe. How do you build a religion dedicated to yourself, but at the same time, something that the people will believe? You based your lie on actual facts. You base your lie on the truth. Satan, for instance, in the Garden of Eden, in the Garden of Eden, Satan beguiles Eve into biting the apple. For in the day that you bite this apple, your eyes will be open. But God said he's going to kill us if we eat it. No, he ain't. Trust me. He's not going to kill you. He is not going to kill you. And what happened? What happened at the end of that story? They didn't get killed. Not by God. He took things away from them. He made their life harder to live. They may have wanted to die at times, but he didn't kill them. So see, everybody, the old school elders of the church would tell you that the devil's a liar, the devil's a liar. Okay, he might be a liar, but you know as well as I know that the greatest lie he ever told was based on the truth. When he told that girl that God was not going to kill her and Adam, he wasn't lying. And that's why a lot of people get hoodwinked into bad situations, because the person that's telling a lie is using the truth to spin the lie, to give it legitimacy. Oh, girl, go ahead and eat this apple. You know, your husband will love you better. He'll respect you if you got your own mind. Don't listen to God. He'll be all right. See, there's power, there's knowledge in that apple. And if you eat the apple, you'll be strong and smart. Go ahead, eat the apple. Don't you want to live forever? Don't you want to be smart? Don't you want all the things that men have? Okay. She bites the apple. She gains all this knowledge. But here's the thing. She has no wisdom. Nobody ever talks about her being a wise woman. She was not a wise woman. She was smart, but she wasn't wise because she didn't know how to use the knowledge that she had attained. It was a trick. Satan is a trickster. If nothing else, he is a trickster. The devil is a lie. His intentions are false. I give you that. In that regard, the devil is a liar. His intentions are not true. But he is a trickster. He caught Jesus at his lowest point, and that still wasn't low enough. He thought he was going to be able to finesse Jesus into doing some goofy stuff, and it didn't work. But in the beginning, there was God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. This is what's in the Bible. And I say that to say what happened in ancient Egypt happened before the Bible. I probably said it before, and I'm going to say it a couple more times. What's going on in ancient Egypt is happening before John the Baptist. And I'm using John the Baptist as a reference point because John the Baptist was baptizing people, and he was teaching people that a greater person than himself was coming. And he was right. But black folks, yes, we should respect John the Baptist, but we're not Baptists. We're not Baptists. Catholicism was the first form of Christianity, but we're not Christian. Yes, there were other religions, but at the same time, you got the heretic Pharaoh, King Tut's father, who was deeply devoted to the Aten, the one God. And millenniums later, if that's a phrase even, but many hundreds of years later, what do? We send these so-called missionary people all over the world preaching the God's gospel, the one true God. But at the same time, these so-called Christians fail to realize, well, I won't say fail to realize, they fail in their effort to convince people through love. Ugh. Let's just put it like this. They were the liars. They were the devils in this story. Because long before they were even born, there was a Pharaoh who figured out that there was only one God, not multiple gods. And I'll say it again. I believe that God tried to speak to humans long before Moses. But it didn't go so well. I think he spoke to Akhenaten, and Akhenaten looked up at the sun and said, "It's God. It's got to be God. God is the sun. The sun is God." Technically, he was right, but no, you missed the mark, bruh. You was close. You was on the right track, but you was missing something. God already said he's a jealous God. So he got frustrated, went and chilled for a bit, and he came back. I'm gonna try this one more time. These people just don't get it. And what does he do? What does he do? He didn't use the sun this time. He spoke to Moses as a ball of fire on a brush. A ball of fire set ablaze on a bush. The burning bush. But that wasn't the first time. It wasn't the first time he tried to communicate with humans. Now, that may be the first time that somebody actually listened to a ball of fire. But it wasn't the first time. Akhenaten did it first. Now, who influenced him to come to the conclusion that there was only one God? The jury's still out on that. The jury's still out on that. But, as I was saying, Professor Breyer is saying that there's always three. There's always a trinity with the gods. This concept was before Catholicism. It was before the so-called Christianity. Why do I feel this way? It's real simple. Satan is a liar. But Satan don't just straight out tell you lies and then you just believe them. Satan tells lies that are wrapped up in the truth. You know, in many cultures, people try to shield their kids from the bad things in life. And then when they grow up, it's like this, a shock to their brain that people would do these bad things, you know. And sometimes they fall prey to it and they dive deeper into these bad situations. But we'll probably save that for another video. Let's continue. So we are at the point where he's exploring. Where he just got through explaining. I don't know why that just happened. Where he just got through explaining about the Trinity. A father, a son, and a mother. But in Christianity, it's a Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I still believe Mother Nature, as we so call her, because a woman is the nurturer of life itself. She empowers life itself. When a boy gets hurt, who does he go to? He don't go to daddy. He goes to his mother. Mother. Women, black women, have always been held in high regard in our community. It's the white women who have to beg their male counterparts to give them equal rights. And it disgusts me that black women sit up here and try to put themselves on par with white women. You don't need them. Come back home. You don't need them. Look at your history. Don't just know it, understand it. African American studies. That's some bullshit. Why come it's only offered in certain colleges and not throughout the whole high school educational system? But that's the story for another day.
Tutankhamun's, these sacred statues, would be placed in a little boat shrine and taken from Karnak to Luxor, where they would spend a fortnight or so. And Luxor was called the Southern Harem. And it would be a great festival. People could see the statues of the gods. There was drinking, there was eating, and the king paid for it all. It was a wonderful town feast. That's what Tutankhamun puts on Luxor Colonnade. That's the decoration that he has. So that he's really saying to everybody, I'm traditional. It's back to the good old times. So he does that, which is a nice thing. And you know, Tutankhamun took part in this festival. There are scenes of Tutankhamun making offerings to the gods. But if you look very carefully at Luxor Temple, I've been there a lot, you can't find Tutankhamun's name. It's all been erased. Where you have an image of Tutankhamun making offerings to the gods, cartouche is a little deeper, and there's Horemheb's name. Horemheb came right in, and just usurped the monument. So everything of Tutankhamun is going to be wiped away. That's why we hardly know about him, because he was part of this Amarna heresy. Now, what about Horemheb's own monuments? Well, Horemheb has two tombs. Now, he only has one body. Why does he have two tombs? Because first, when he was the king's deputy, when he was a commoner, he needed a tomb. So he built a tomb at Saqqara. Remember Saqqara, where the step pyramid was built? This was a place where people of the 18th dynasty, the nobility, people who were up and coming, not royalty, had tombs. There's a wonderful street almost of tombs. You could walk down and you could say, oh, so-and-so, the treasurer was here, the general was here, so-and-so was here. And Horemheb built a tomb for himself at Saqqara. Now, as a military commander, as the king's deputy, it's a pretty impressive tomb. Beautiful carvings. And you know what it shows? It shows Horemheb being rewarded for his good service by the pharaoh, who was probably Tutankhamun. And it shows him. He's being given gold collars, right? He's standing up, and he's got his arms up so the collar can be placed over his head, and people are coming and placing gold collars around Horemheb as his reward for good service. Now, remember, he's not going to be buried here, though, because he's going to become king. But he's going to have a tomb in the Valley of the Kings where he will be buried. But it's kind of interesting. I mean, vanity is sort of an interesting thing. The tomb at Saqqara is not going to be used as the burial place for Horemheb, because when he becomes king, he's going to want to be buried with all the big honchos in the Valley of the Kings. What he does, though, I mean, the tomb is almost complete. It's decorated, it's got scenes of military exploits, all kinds of things. When he becomes king, he sends sculptors to the Saqqara tomb to change it a little. Now, how are they going to change it, right? They're rewriting history. Horemheb the general is shown being rewarded with his collars of gold. And he tells the sculptors, wherever you see my picture, carve a little cobra on the forehead. Right? Now, the cobra is called by Egyptologists the uraeus. It's a technical term. It's simply Greek for cobra. It's a Greek for cobra. The Egyptians never used that word uraeus. It's a Greek word used later. It means cobra. The cobra was the sign of royalty, of the king. If you look, for example, at the famous gold mask of Tutankhamun, he's got a cobra coming out of the forehead. Coming out of the forehead. As a matter of fact, you know what's interesting? It almost became the symbol of Egypt. In sign language, international sign language for, say, deaf people, the word for Egypt, you put up your finger like a cobra to your forehead. That's the word for Egypt. So it became a sort of symbol of Egypt. So Horemheb says, well, I really am king. He sends the sculptors up, and they carve the little cobras all over the foreheads wherever Horemheb's image appears. Right? But, as I said, he's buried not at Saqqara, not good enough for the king. He's buried in the Valley of the Kings. His tomb was found in 1908. 1908 by Theodore Davis, that wealthy American who was excavating in the Valley of the Kings, who gave up thinking he had found Tutankhamun's tomb. He found Horemheb's tomb. And I'll tell you something interesting about it. There are a lot of similarities between his tomb, or at least the things found in his tomb, and Tutankhamun's.
Oh, wow. This guy. I like him already. Not. Anyway. as much as I would love to continue this discussion right now, I'm going to take a break for a few hours. When I come back, we'll continue. Might be today, might be tomorrow. We will chat again. Be good, be safe. Chat with you later.